Reddit has always been a site that attracts weird characters. To this day, there are still questionable subreddits lurking on the site, but none of them are outright illegal. Reddit is pretty openly proud about condoning free speech, but there's definitely been times that the free speech has been taken too far.
One featured pictures of dead children, another was called rape jokes. You get the idea, pretty vile stuff.
And Reddit has had to remove entire communities from the site. Today, lady and man, we are taking a deep dive into the banned subreddits Iceberg, starting from the bizarre and making our way down to the disturbing depths of the internet. The lower we go, the more up it gets. r/shoplifting is pretty much exactly what you would expect. Started in the very early days of Reddit, r/shoplifting gained a community of over 70,000 fellow shoplifters. The forum would be filled with everything from tips and tricks to potentially easy places to steal from, to stories and even the people showing off their theft haul. r/shoplifting did actually have rules, however. It encouraged shoplifters to only steal from large corporations and big companies, and never to target small, family-owned businesses. That's wholesome. I like that. Near the end of its existence, over 77,000 people were subscribed to the subreddit. It was banned on March 21st, 2018 because it violated an amendment to the Reddit user agreement. r/incels was a subreddit created for individuals who identified as involuntary celibates, people who struggled to form romantic or sexual relationships despite wanting them. The community defined an incel as someone over the age of 20 who had gone at least 6 months without a romantic partner, not by choice. 6 months doesn't seem like that long. I feel like it's pretty common to go that long without a romantic partner. Right, guys? Many users on r/incels followed the black pill ideology, which basically means they're cool with treating women like shit. Disturbing threads with titles like "Reasons Why Women Are the Embodiment of Evil" and "Proof That Girls Are Nothing But Trash That Use Men" were not uncommon. But what makes it even worse is that users who were considered too sympathetic towards women, or who claimed that women could also be incels, were often banned by moderators. The community held conflicting attitudes towards socially successful people, referring to them as normies and chads. Some even idolized mass killers like Elliot Rodger, who identified as an incel. In 2017, a Change.org petition was launched calling for Reddit to ban r/incels for promoting violence against women. And on November 7th, 2017, r/incels was officially banned. At the time, the subreddit had roughly 40,000 members. So what did these little incels do? They made a new subreddit, and this one was called... Following the ban of r/incels in November 2017, r/braincells emerged as the primary hub for incels. Within just 5 months, this subreddit attracted over 16,000 members. Like its predecessor, r/braincells became known for promoting extreme and harmful content. In 2019, Reddit shut down the subreddit for violating its policies on bullying and harassment. And this time, those poor little incels had nowhere to go. Poor incels. r/uncensored news was a far-right subreddit that branded itself as the free speech alternative to mainstream news communities on Reddit. But in reality, it became a hub for hate speech and bigotry. And before you start commenting, "Oh, Mary Jaros doesn't believe in free speech." Yes, I do. I just don't like racism. What? Shock horror, right? The subreddit was founded by users who had previously moderated white nationalist communities that were banned by Reddit before mid-2016. It saw a surge in popularity after the Orlando nightclub shooting, when Reddit's r/news was accused of censoring details about the shooter, specifically his religion and motives. That controversy drove thousands of angry users to r/uncensored news, where they believed they were finally getting the full story. But what they found wasn't exactly uncensored journalism. It was a feed filled with stories about crimes committed by minorities, posts pushing xenophobic and Islamophobic narratives, and discussions drenched in racism. One stickied post from a moderator outright stated, "Here at Uncensored News, we love racism, bigotry, misogyny, hatred, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia, etc." And that wasn't a joke. That was serious. They meant that. Users openly compared interracial relationships to bestiality, and in one thread, they debated whether Jews or Muslims were more dangerous. On March 12, 2018, Reddit permanently banned r/uncensored news for inciting violence. Pizzagate wasn't just a conspiracy theory. It was a viral trend born from the very weird landscape of the 2016 US election. It all started in early November 2016, when a series of hacked emails from the Democratic Party were published online. Conspiracy theorists began scouring the messages, claiming to find coded references to a child trafficking ring, one they believed was being run by high-ranking Democratic officials. According to the theory, this ring was operating outside of a Washington, D.C. pizza restaurant called Comet Ping Pong. I'm not here to talk about that. Maybe I'll do a future video on it because I do actually have some rather strong opinions about this topic. On Reddit, things escalated quickly. Within weeks, the subreddit had attracted over 20,000 members, all eager to investigate the supposed ring. Members of the community began digging into the lives of people mentioned in the emails and started posting their personal information, including their names, addresses, social media profiles, and even photos of their family. It was a pretty fucked up case of doxing, and it didn't take long for Reddit to act. On November 23rd, 2016, just weeks after the subreddit was created, r/Pizzagate was permanently banned for violating Reddit's anti-doxing policy. This danger became real. On December 4th, 2016, a man armed with an assault rifle walked into Comet Ping Pong, demanding to self-investigate the conspiracy. He fired shots inside the restaurant, but thankfully no one was injured. In the end, Reddit's ban of r/Pizzagate may have stopped the worst of the doxing, but by then, the damage had already been done. r/Guns for Sale was exactly what it sounded like. A subreddit where users could buy, sell, and trade firearms. For years, it operated in a little bit of a weird legal grey area, quietly facilitating private gun sales across the United States. Back in 2011, the subreddit was popular enough to secure an actual licensing deal. Nearly 100 AR-15 rifles were engraved with the Reddit logo. This wasn't just a fan project, it was officially sanctioned branding. But by January 2014, things started to get a little bit dicey. A report by Mother Jones exposed how subreddits like r/Guns for Sale were potentially exploiting loopholes in US federal law. Essentially, Reddit was being used as a digital gun market, connecting buyers and sellers without the regulation that you'd expect from licensed dealers. And for a while, Reddit didn't really give a fuck. It was technically legal, but mounting pressure from gun control advocates and a growing number of mass in the US made it impossible to ignore. So, on March 21st, 2018, Reddit updated its content guidelines to ban any communities that facilitated transactions involving firearms. And then that same day, r/Gun for Sales was permanently banned. r/Spooners is probably one of the most disturbing subreddits in this list. It consisted of only one post, a link, and this link would lead directly to my YouTube, and then it would force you to hit subscribe. Wow, that's crazy. That's great. Maybe you guys should subscribe or something. We're hitting the part of the video now that starts to go from bizarre to fucked up. From now on, things are going to be pretty censored. You'll see why. r/Figurines was a subreddit dedicated entirely to figurines from popular culture, but it wasn't just the figurines. It was, fuck. I don't know how to say this without getting demonetized. The figurines were covered in mayonnaise. Man mayonnaise. You get what I'm trying to say? People liked these figurines a little bit too much. there's not too much more to say about this one. Frankly, I just didn't want to do any more research on it because I actually had to look at the pictures and videos from the subreddit, and I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. Oh my god. Fuck's sake. Here we go again. r/oh come on was a subreddit dedicated entirely to people leaving their mayonnaise in weird and creative places. So you'd get videos of people putting their mayonnaise in plants or off cliffs or anywhere. There was one infamous video of a guy replacing the cream inside an Oreo with mayonnaise and eating it. I don't really understand why people are into that. But go off, I guess. r/oh come on had 67,000 members at its peak. How crazy is that? r/deepfakes was one of the most disturbing examples of how fast technology can start to blur the line of ethics. Launched in late 2017, the subreddit quickly gained traction for one reason. It showcased fake adult videos. Users were able to superimpose the faces of real women, mostly famous actresses, onto adult videos, and of course, none of them had consented. But that didn't really matter to the subreddit's community. To its users, this was just the next frontier of entertainment, a new form of deepfake technology that let anyone create disturbingly convincing fake videos in minutes. As the subreddit's popularity exploded, so did the media attention. Articles began to come out warning that this wasn't just a novelty, it was technically spreading non-consensual adult videos. So, the very next day, February 7th, Reddit banned r/deepfakes, citing violations of its policy against involuntary adult entertainment. r/Jackalandia was a Filipino-based subreddit that became infamous for crossing the line between voyeurism and outright exploitation. In January 2019, the subreddit came under intense scrutiny after being accused of distributing non-consensual images of women. Many of the photos appeared to have been taken in public, without the subject's knowledge or permission. In many cases, it was clear that the woman had no idea that they were being photographed. And these weren't just isolated incidents. Investigators found that r/Jackalandia was just one piece of a much larger and much more fucked up online ecosystem. Across multiple Facebook groups, users were engaging in similar behavior. They were sharing disturbing images of unsuspecting women, and in some cases, allegedly circulating child exploitation material. r/Watch People Die was one of the most disturbing corners of Reddit, a subreddit that, for years, drew in users with graphic, real-life footage of human death. It was exactly what the name suggested. The subreddit lived in a weird ethical grey zone, raising questions about what kind of content should be allowed to exist online. If we're allowed to watch men spreading mayonnaise on their figures, why shouldn't we be allowed to watch people being crushed in workplace accidents? I'm not sure why you'd want to watch either of those, but apparently people do. Reddit eventually put an age restriction on the community, a content warning that restricted access for people under the age of 18. You could literally just click that you were over 18 and it didn't even matter. But other than the restriction, it didn't ban anything. And then came March 15th, 2019, the day of the Christchurch mosque in New Zealand. A white supremacist gunman entered 2 mosques during Friday prayer and live-streamed the massacre to Facebook. The footage quickly spread across the internet, and r/Watch People Die became one of the places sharing the videos. The subreddit's moderator allowed it to be shared, but that decision actually proved to be the end of the entire subreddit. Less than 24 hours later, Reddit permanently banned r/Watch People Die, citing a clear violation of the platform's policy against glorifying or encouraging violence. r/Creepshots was one of the most infamous subreddits Reddit had ever seen. Similar to r/Jackalandia, it was a community built around non-consensual photo of women and girls. But this community was much larger than anything Reddit had ever seen before. These photos again were taken in public places, zoomed in on legs, cleavage, or most of the time under skirts. The subreddit claimed it was legal because the pictures were taken in public. But there is a lot more to this story. It's pretty fucking weird. As media coverage intensified, one name surfaced, u/Violence Violenter Krez. This user had already become notorious across Reddit. He wasn't just active in r/Creepshots, he was a moderator of dozens of controversial subreddits. At the same time, he also moderated hundreds of normal communities to blend in as just another average user. But behind the username was a real man, Michael Bruch. And in late 2012, journalist Adrian Chen announced that he was preparing to unmask him. Reddit moderators, many of whom had considered Violent Krez as a weird sort of hero, banned links to Adrian Chen's articles across major subreddits. They claimed Chen's article would constitute doxing, a serious violation of Reddit's values at the time. To them, exposing someone's real identity was a bigger threat to the platform than the content itself. They literally wanted to protect the people sharing explicit images of underage teenagers. That's right, r/Creepshots wasn't even Michael's worst subreddit, but that one is going to the bottom of our iceberg, so we're going to get into that one fairly shortly. Privately, Michael begged Chen not to go through with the article. He admitted that the expose would likely ruin his life. He even offered to delete all his subreddits and disappear from Reddit entirely, but Chen went ahead with the story. On October 12th, 2012, the article dropped. Michael Bruch was outed as u/Violenter Krez, and it was pretty instant. He lost his job, he got outed in public, and he even had several news articles written about him. Here's an interview he did.
The problem is the kids, the teenagers, the pictures weren't yours.
That is correct.
You didn't know who those kids were.
No, and neither did anyone else.
I'm not sure why you would do an interview after being outed for that, but whatever floats your boat, man. Obviously, r/Creepshots was banned very quickly. r/ was one of the most violent, openly racist subreddits Reddit had ever hosted. Created as a space for hate speech, the subreddit trafficked in overt white supremacy, slurs, and violent targeting of black people. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't at all ironic. It was a genuine hatred towards black people. But for years, Reddit didn't give a fuck. And then that all changed in June 2013 when Reddit finally banned the subreddit. But this wasn't just for hate speech. This was for a pattern of behavior that was impossible to ignore. The community had been manipulating votes, inciting violence, and actively disrupting other subreddits by flooding them with racist content and targeted attacks. At the time, Reddit's then general manager, Eric Martin, acknowledged just how long it had taken. He said, "Users can tell from the amount of warnings we extended to a subreddit as clearly awful as r/ that we go into the decision to ban subreddits with a lot of scrutiny." In other words, even something that was as blatantly fucked up still had to pass through multiple layers of internal debate before a ban was finally issued. What? For many, this highlighted a major issue with Reddit's early content policies. The platform was often reluctant to act, and we will see that later with something even more fucked up than this. r/beating women was one of the darkest corners of Reddit, a community so disturbing that even just its name sparked outrage. But the horror didn't just stop at the title. The subreddit was filled with graphic images, videos, and so-called jokes that glorified violence against women. Bruises, blood, abuse, and even murder in some cases, presented with commentary that mocked or celebrated the suffering of women. Some posts claimed to be fantasy. Others made no attempt at hiding that their post was in fact real violence, and it attracted thousands of members. And again, for quite a while, Reddit didn't care that it existed. But in June of 2014, the subreddit was finally banned. But the story didn't end there. The subreddit's founder immediately tried to avoid the ban by launching a replacement. And guess what he named it? r/beating women too. How original. It was a near identical reboot with the same premise, same themes, and the same users flooding back in. But this time, Reddit didn't play around and his entire account was permanently banned. Look who's back, guys. It's Michael from before. You know, the one that liked to share photos of random women. This time, he has his own subreddit dedicated entirely to underage girls. What? r/J was probably one of the most fucked up subreddits to ever exist. But the story is what makes it even more fucked up. This was a place where users shared photos of underage girls. The pictures weren't actually nude, but they were suggestive. Shockingly, r// wasn't actually some obscure corner of Reddit. It was mainstream. In fact, Redditors voted it subreddit of the year. And for a time, was the second most searched term on the site. Reddit's general manager at the time, Eric Martin, actually publicly defended the subreddit. He said controversial content was simply part of Reddit's commitment to free speech. Michael, or u/Violent Acrez, actually won an award for his subreddit. Wow! What a weird thing to be awarded for. In 2011, r/Jailbait's existence finally shot into public view when Anderson Cooper devoted a segment on CNN to criticizing the subreddit. But rather than killing the subreddit, that exposure caused a surge in traffic. And on the day of Cooper's broadcast, r/ drew a record-breaking 1.73 million views. What? But that spotlight also led to r/ downfall. In the wake of the media attention, a Reddit user posted a photo of an underage girl, but this time he was claiming to have nude images of her ready to share. Thousands of users began publicly requesting the photos, which is pretty fucked up. Other Reddit users quickly raised alarms, and on October 11th, 2011, Reddit finally shut down r/. There are a lot more subreddits that are by far a lot worse than this. If this video does well, I want to do an hour-long deep dive into the majority of them, because the ones that we went over today, these barely even scratched the surface. Like, share, comment, subscribe.